Hi, I'm Michael Agra, and I'm sitting here with my friend Waverly, who founded and runs a group called Yalari. And Waverly will tell you a little bit about what Yalari does. Welcome,
Thank
Waverly,
you,
and I'm looking forward to having a good chat about Yalari and your current status. So what do you do?
So Yalari is a not-for-profit organisation that we started in 2005. My wife and I started that in our house at home in Southwood. And the purpose for Yalari is just to provide scholarship for Indigenous children to go to boarding schools around Australia, in partnership with, like yourselves, to give them an education around this country then. And that's what we do.
Can you, I mean, I've heard the story, but not everybody has, but do you mind giving us a little bit of background about how Yalari started and what your big purpose is?
Yeah, so Mrs. Bishop was my grade 7 teacher in 1979 at Merkin, and so, you know, she's seen something in me at Merkin, and then, you know, we're talking about something 40 years ago now.
Yeah.
And so she wrote to Mr. Dent, who was the headmaster at Toowoomba Grammar School, about, because Mrs. Bishop came from Toowoomba,
Yeah.
and Mrs. Bishop was teaching in Merkin, and then she just asked, she wrote a letter to Mr. Dent if he could, you know, give her some contacts for schools in Toowoomba. And then I think he rang her up and said, oh, you know, better still, why don't you ask Waverley and these parents to come over and have an interview at Toowoomba Grammar School.
Right.
So I remember, so one Friday afternoon, Mrs. Bishop asked me, or it was a Thursday, I think, and she said, oh, you know, come, ask your parents to come up, I need you to see your parents. And I thought I was in trouble, see.
Yeah.
So here I was, and then they were sitting down there, and then they come back out of the meeting afterwards, and Dad and Mum said, oh, Mrs. Bishop wants to know if you would go off to a private school, Toowoomba Grammar School.
Right.
And we got an interview the following Tuesday.
And what is it that she saw in you? What do you think she saw in you?
I don't know. I don't know whether it was...
Haven't you ever asked her?
Oh yeah, you know I have. You know, oh well, you know I was captain of the
Were you a
school.
particularly bright kid?
No, not the brightest. No.
No.
No, my biggest claim to fame was girls and sport. Or maybe the other way around, sport and girls. No,
That's okay.
No, I'm just, no, I don't know. I was school captain and
Right.
you know, sporting teams and things like that. And you know, there was only 4 Indigenous families in Merkin at that time.
Yeah.
And you know, Stanleys were one of them. And
Yeah.
so, and that was it. And then
So you ended up going to grammar school.
Yeah,
Grammar.
I was there on my own for 5 years. Yeah.
And you know, it was based on that educational experience, which was formative for you and positive, obviously, for you, that you decided later on in life to provide that opportunity to other Indigenous kids. Is that essentially the...
Because I still remember the first day I went to Toowoomba Grammar School, and I seen the big fields, and you know, one of those fields, you know, takes up just, you know, it was huge. I think it was so big, and seeing that for the first time, and then when I didn't see any Aboriginal students at Toowoomba Grammar School, I knew I was on my own. The only time I seen any Aboriginal people in town was at this pinball parlour.
Yeah.
And you know, and you know, a lot of Indigenous people are connected. So I knew some people from, and they had connections to family from Sherbrooke and Merkin, where I come from. And we weren't allowed to go into that pinball parlour, see, not while in school blazer.
Right.
And so what I thought it was really smart, because so what I used to do is I used to put a little backpack underneath my blazer, and I used to have it down, and I thought it was smart, and I had civvies in it, you know, just a pair of shorts, a shirt, and a pair of thongs or something. And I would go in, you know, and I'd go into the toilet, I'd get changed, and then I would go and stand around with all these other Aboriginal young fellas, and then play, you know, Space Invaders and everything like that, and then get in, change in my blazer, and then go back to school. Well, I thought I was smart there for a couple of weeks, and then Mr. Bourne, who was the deputy headmaster, he was patrolling this pinball parlour because to keep an eye on it.
He likes Space Invaders.
That's exactly he does. And so Mr. Bourne seen me coming out, and he said, and he caught me, and he said, Stanley, I want to see you in my office, 8:30 Monday morning. He said, righto. I said, you've been down at the pinball parlour. Give me one reason why I should not suspend you. And I said, oh, Mr. Bourne, I said, I'm the only Aboriginal boy here at Toowoomba Grammar School, and the only time I get to see any other Aboriginal people is at the pinball parlour.
Huh.
And I said, my mum and dad, I said, I'm the eldest of 7 children. My mum and dad, so they only would come over twice a year.
Yes.
Because of sport with my other brothers and sisters. And Mr. Bourne then said to made a deal with me that I could do that the whole time at my Toowoomba Grammar School.
Oh, wow.
And that was our agreement just between him and I.
Yes, yes.
And I said this to my mates from Toowoomba Grammar School that graduated with me in '84. They didn't even know that I had that agreement.
Yes, yes.
And I seen Mr. Bourne at a Toowoomba Grammar School old boys function at the Sunshine Coast 2 years ago.
Yes.
And I quizzed him about it, and I said, thank you very much for allowing me to do that. And he had tears in his eyes, and
wow.
He said, no, I understand what you were going through, and I'm grateful for that.
You're blessed with a couple of great inspirational leaders. I mean, Mary Bishop and
Mrs. Bishop,
Mrs. Bishop, and Mr. Bourne. I mean, there's some extraordinary people there, particularly in that day, in that time, because it wasn't as inclusive then as what it is now.
Yeah, so, definitely. There's a lot of people that when we first started off, that believed in the ideal.
Yeah.
And yourselves that come to, where we're just starting off, and we've grown a bit now.
Yeah, it's going so well.
Well, we've never moved away from what we've done and what we believe in.
I mean, I've always said to anyone that I meet, it's probably the most powerful, change opportunity for Indigenous Australians. I mean, educating them at the best schools, giving them the mentoring, the nurturing, and giving them leadership and vision and inspiration from yourself and your surrounding crew. I mean, it's such a rare mix and package. It's rare anywhere on earth. So it's an extraordinary opportunity for the kids and for Australians. So
definitely. But the thing along the way, like I'm very grateful. The generosity of so many wonderful people. So historically, there's been songlines all around Australia. So a lot of our people knew where, when they go for songlines, there'd be what places to travel to, where food was plentiful, where water was.
Yes.
So I've then, what I did at the Brisbane was there's an educational line. So in Clay's case, so his educational line goes from Darwin to Melbourne, Melbourne to Geelong. Right. So that's an educational line, see?
Uh-huh.
So that's their journey.
Right.
So put it into a 21st century context.
Yes.
Of that, we're still operating, like our old people did 60,000 years ago.
Yes.
So where the song lines of someone coming, say, from Bairnsdale to here, and there'd be song lines where, people would have walked along the Yarra to here, where all the water would have been plentiful, and, going out to the Yangs from Geelong coming into here. So there would be, traditional song lines all through here that and I talk about, that our children are being educated in these private schools where they would have been educated, the same education that they would have had underneath a tree.
Yes.
20,000 years ago, even.
So it's great to contextualise it in today's terms. So.
Yeah, and you have to. That these, and I keep saying to our children, you're not any less Indigenous just because you go to a private school.
Yes, yes.
And teaching them two things was making sure you never forget where home is, and never forget your connection to country. Then.
Yeah. Fantastic. Amazing. The first time I met you, and what got me captivated in the Yalari story was when you said, I'm not here for short-term goals and for short-term agendas. I'm here to make intergenerational change, and I have a 30-year plan to do that. And that's what got me. I thought that there's not many people who take a long view of anything today, and you've taken the long view. You've invested your time, your resources, and your family in it. So I'm going to say thank you for the opportunity to participate with you, and thank you for your contribution to Australians and what you're doing for this great country.
Yeah, thank you.
It's extraordinary, and you must be extraordinarily proud of what you've accomplished, and I'm certainly extraordinarily proud to be sitting here and talking to you.
No,
so
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Easy,
you.
mate. Thank you. There you go. How was that? And
There you
that's
go.
a cut.
And that's a cut.
There you go.
You're good at this.
Yeah.